Scott, I love that you're wearing the Stoke Zone hat. Real water sports, baby.
You know what? Welcome to the Stoke Zone. Real Water Sports, our good friends at Real Trip Foreman and the crew there. They provide so much service for the surf world. I'm a big fan.
Well, you're going to be an even bigger fan. 2 hours ago, they just posted a video. I always check out the surf videos or maybe people that they're interviewing, like our buddy Devin or Pat O'Connell. But 2 hours ago, they posted foil anatomy. What makes a foil?
Wow. Okay. I'm going to dive right into that because I'm sort of eating up everything foil. You know, when you're new to, I guess, a sport or a genre of a sport, you're excited about everything new. And I see that here in the surf world too. You know, there's people that are on our group that are rather new to surf culture and to the sport of surfing. And man, they eat up everything surfing and more power to them, you know? And so, yeah, I'm going to check out the videos at Real Water Sports, the video.
Yeah, anatomy of a foil. If you've ever wanted to know anything before you make your purchase, this is a great 3 minute little primer. So go check that out. And then, like I said, they just did an interview with Pat O'Connell as well from Florence Marine X, which is worth checking out. They do phenomenal videos. And then we also owe a debt of gratitude to NVS. They sent down 3 sets of fins for the just community fins for all of our listeners who came to our El Salvador trip to use. So I thought that was super
Yeah.
nice.
Timmy Patterson fins, tri fins that I'm going to throw in my tri fin and go out to the point and give a rundown on those and get a feel for those. So yeah, man, NVS fins,
Super
hell
nice.
yes.
And I think I might have mentioned it last week, but the generosity of those guys, they said not only can you guys use these fins, but leave them behind for your other guests at the hotel that come after you or the surf guides that show you around. Just leave them down there. We're just seeding goodwill down in El Salvador. So NVS fins, it's surfnvs.com to check them out and support and get the best fins in the market.
As we see some movement at the takeoff zone, it's Kelly Slater grabbing rail.
Yeah, guy. Yeah, guy. Welcome, everybody. It is Spit. It's the Spit Podcast. And we, David and Scott, are in El Salvador. We're podcasting from El Salvador. And David, buenos dias, my friend.
Buenos dias. It's Hotel Los Mongos. We owe a huge thanks to the crew here and then also Waterways Travel for making this all happen for us. Scott and I do very little lifting. It's like when I travel with my family, I'm stressed out, I'm anxious, I'm doing all the booking. It's like people email, I forward the emails to Waterways, and that's the extent of my work here.
Yeah, thanks to Waterways and the people at Hotel Los Mangos. We're having a great stay. The surf has been super fun. I would say it's been 4 to 5 feet. Would that be like chest to head high with occasionally larger waves, overhead waves for sure. Would that be a good characterization, you think?
I think so. Yeah, it's literally the same thing as last year.
Yeah. Yeah. And the winds have been great. And I'm looking out my window right now, David, and I'm seeing some fun little peelers roll through at the point. And goodness gracious, doesn't take much to get me surfed out, and I'm surfed out.
I'm feeling the effects. So we got here on Monday. Today's Wednesday, right? Okay, I'm
It
losing
is.
track.
Today's Thursday, April 3rd.
Thursday. Okay. So we got here on Monday, surfed a half day, got here midday, so surfed half day. So we had 2 full days, I guess, Tuesday, Wednesday. Today's the third. I'm feeling the effects for sure. And yesterday evening session, I thought I could pull off. I felt rested, but then I got out there and it was like nothing's working. My arms aren't working, my legs aren't working. So even though I rested for a lot of the day, I didn't recover, you
Yeah,
know?
I feel you. I understand where you're coming from. Your mind says let's go, and your body says yeah, yeah, and then you get out there, and your body's like no, bad idea.
But that I can't overstate the ease of this trip and how accessible the waves are because there are other trips where you have to either get in a boat to get to the spot or whatever and you only end up surfing 2 or 3 hours a day or something. This the resort is right on the hill and you're looking at the beach break right out front. The point is just down the way. You could see that. And really, there's kind of options to surf 6 hours a day if you really wanted to. I mean, we're out there at light I think we're in the water by 5:30. So you can get a 2-hour session in. It's only 7:30. You have breakfast. There's guys right now paddling out for the second morning session. Take a nap midday, still go back in the afternoon, do another 2 hours if you wanted to, and it's still not dark.
Yeah, you're right. There's plenty of opportunities. There's no doubt about that. And yeah, super fun. I mean, like I said, the waves are 4 to 6, and we're in our own little version of Paradiso here.
I I mean, I can't recommend El Salvador enough, I think is kind of how I feel about it, especially if you're in USA. It's a short, I mean, you could be down here in 5 hours basically. And it's so easy and accessible. The beach break, I think is underappreciated. The beach break out front here doesn't even have a name, but it's actually really fun.
David's. We're going to call it David's. La Playa David. Yeah, the
It's,
beach
I
break's
mean,
fun.
it's better than it. I mean, it's better than it. I don't know. Just nobody ever hyped it. I kind of got into it, and so I was telling listeners this trip they should look forward to it, and I think I still undersold it.
Yeah, look, the beach break's an option, and it's right at our doorstep, right at the bottom of our path. So good stuff there. David, I've got some stuff for the show today. I've got the discussion about Lost and Lady Gaga, which is interesting, and of course we've got the WSL event here in El Salvador, 3 hours due west of us at La Libertad, Punta Roca. They're in the water right now as we speak. In fact, your survival pick, Leonardo Fioravante, is in the water right now as we speak.
Rushing. Did you see his first wave?
No, was it a good one?
Yeah, he smoked. I mean, his other two competitors got waves first and they surfed well. So I was kind of like feeling nervous for him. He got on a wave and blew the thing apart and got the highest score of the day so far. So I'm feeling good.
Wow. All right. Well, we still have to get through the round of
Yeah.
32, so we'll see.
Yeah. Don't get too excited. But it's worth noting, as you said, the event's just 3 hours from where we're sitting. And it's kind of interesting to be here while they're here. Like yesterday, they called the event off. Their forecast was supposed to be decent. Um, but what they experienced was exactly what we experienced yesterday. Was there was a good pulse of waves in the morning, and then the wind kicked up and things just shifted and it kind of went to junk. Um, and so it's cool to be able to kind of mimic. And the other thing is, it's all right cobblestone points here. So watching what they're doing compared to the wave that we have at Mango right here, it's kind of nice to be able to draw inspiration.
Yeah, it's very similar, huh? And
It is.
I've seen some of your top turns, and I know that you are being inspired because, you know, let's be real. Um, you sort of downplay your surfing, but you've been surfing great. You've been ripping, so good stuff.
Thanks, man. I also, before we get into the actual bulk of the show, I did want to talk about our trip a little bit more because you've been riding the foil and you've gotten really, really good at it since your first time trying. I mean, the last time I saw you was literally the first time you were trying, but you're foiling really, really well.
Yeah, thanks. Foiling's so much fun. I mean, I love it. I've spoken about it at length on the show, and it's just another option. It's another arrow in the quiver. We've got fishes, we've got three fins, we've got step ups, we've got ASIMs, we've got gliders, we've got longboards, and then deep in the far reaches of the basket, we can pull out the foil. And when it's small and lackluster, the foil just makes surfing so much fun.
It's a wonderful sales pitch for the foil, just watching you do it out here. Other guys on the trip are all commenting like, "Oh my gosh, I guess I should start foiling," because all of us have been going and surfing the point in the morning and it gets super crowded. And it's exactly what everybody listening has experienced before, where you're just kind of battling for waves and there's too much pressure. And then you get out and you're kind of bummed. And then I walk down the beach and I see you by yourself, like a pelican, just gliding across the surface, connecting waves, going faster than I'm going. And it's like, wow, okay, that is actually the call. If I could actually get through the learning curve of it and get to where you're at, that looks actually more fun than what I'm doing.
Yeah, well, you touched on probably the most important thing, which is the speed. You go so fast on a foil that, and really that's what well, I'll speak for myself. That's one of the main things that I'm looking for when I go surfing is to go fast. You go fast on the
Of
water.
course.
And the foil, man, ramps that up like Spinal Tap to 11, and so yeah, it's been fun. But surfing out here has been fun too, like the first day you and I paddled out at the point, nobody out, sets rolling through, and excited to be here. I'm just so stoked to be here in El Salvador.
I'm totally enjoying it. I want to give people an idea for the foiling that I witnessed though. Um, Yesterday morning when I came back from the point, I paddled out at the beach break because I saw you out there kind of by yourself. And it was like, let's say 2 to 3 foot soft peaks, but kind of going for a distance. No barrels or anything like that. Kind of, it'd be perfect on maybe a longboard, let's say, or something. Um, and I saw you paddling into one that I thought was going to run off. Like from where you were taking off, I don't think I could have made the section. You would have need to really like angle and go. And you weren't angling. You were paddling into the thing where I thought was too deep, but you were headed more for the beach. I was like, okay, I think he's going to kook it on this thing. And then you get up and the foil lifts, and that's where you get your drive. Even though you were aiming straight and the wave was running off without you, once it got up and you drove, it projected you so fast around that section that I wouldn't have made on a surfboard to where you're then out in the flats, also on a section I wouldn't make on a surfboard because it's too flat. So you don't need to be in this really kind of tight critical part of the wave when you're on the foil. You can operate from a big range on either side where the energy is and even where the energy isn't. And so you surfed that wave to its end, then pumped out and connected it into a different wave. And even that, the way that you got into the different wave, I was like, oh, it's going to get a little bit dicey, but you were able to do it exactly correctly. And I was like, oh my gosh. So he basically just got two waves better than I would surf him on a surfboard, all in a matter of no time at all. So that's the
Yeah,
virtue of
well,
the
thank
foil.
you. Yeah, for sure. Um, as the listeners will know, David and I went to North Carolina a couple of years ago to learn how to foil. And I was telling you, David, earlier at breakfast, the guy who taught us was a guy named Joey, originally from Hawaii, lives in the Outer Banks now. And you and I were watching Joey when we were first learning to foil, and we were like, God, look at Joey, man. He was just connecting these waves, boom, boom, boom. And that's sort of where we wanted to get to. And so that's the fun place to be, right? Connecting waves and picking up waves. And it's quite a workout, by the way. The pumping, all of that is insane cardio, leg burning. Like I'm sitting out there huffing and puffing after one of those.
That's what I was going to ask you. I haven't asked you that this trip was just how much you've had to work out those muscles or cross train or whatever to be able to do that.
I actually am. I actually have free weights at home and I'm doing leg work so that I can maintain and maybe even strengthen my legs. I just asked my wife to buy me some more free weights so that I can up my game for my leg workout. But yeah, there's a lot going on there, and all of it is exciting and new, which is it's fresh, like
Yeah.
I've been surfing for 40 years. Like to add something fresh to the equation is just wonderful.
Well, the free weights so that you could foil sounds like a means to an end, but the reality is, no, it's great for your general health. All of these things are building into your longevity and your health. So it's not just learning something new, it's staying young is what it is.
Yeah. And full
It's
disclosure, I had numerous like I got launched at least 4 or 5 times this morning. Just, so I'm still learning. I would suggest to you that I'm not a beginner, but I'm like I'm in the intermediate zone, and so there's a lot of humility there and it's good.
so about getting launched. How dangerous is that? Have you been in any peril from the foil hitting you or
No,
anything?
no, I've never ever been in peril. It's kind of like surfers know how to wipe out. We know how to get away from the board, and I've never had a situation, knock on wood. I do wear a little helmet thing,
Yeah.
Not everybody does. If there was tons of injuries in the foil world, people wouldn't be doing it. You know what I mean? Now, look,
Yeah.
there's an occasional injury, and sure, there's a lot of mast and fin and stuff to deal with, but you know, surfing's dangerous, foiling's dangerous, being alive is dangerous. It's I wouldn't do it. Look, I'm soft. If I got injured and stuff, I'd be like, you know what? I'm good. I'll go to the putting green. But you know what I mean? Like, I, it's not like I'm some hardened waterman or anything. I'm just like a soft 59-year-old dude that enjoys going fast on 2 foot waves. You know what I mean?
Well, it's been inspirational, I think, for all the younger guys on the trip to, start working on that and incorporate it. So
Sadly, I'm
I'm
hoping the
having,
waves get smaller. I'm sitting here going, okay, I hope it's 2 to 3 tomorrow so I can foil some
yeah,
more.
that
That's
is
bad.
funny.
That is bad. That is bad.
Well, final notes on this trip before we get into the bulk of the show is just how great is the group of people once again.
Yeah, that's actually the highlight, right? It's not the waves.
It's
It isn't. It's the
it's crazy.
relationships and the new friendships that we've built here. And it's so much fun to get to know everyone. And I'm fascinated. They have such interesting lives and backstories, and it's really been wonderful for sure.
If I heard other podcasters talking about this, I would be like, oh, they're just obligatorily saying everybody's cool. It's not. That's not what this is. I'm totally sincere. Every person that comes on last year, I was so blown away by, and this year too. It's like super interesting, smarter than me. Like, so I'm curious, like, well, tell me more about what you do, why you do it. You live where? Interesting. Like, that's fast. They're just really, really great people on top of that too, just like I'm so grateful for our listenership and being able to connect with them in a meaningful way.
I am too. I am too. And frankly, I'm looking forward already to the next one in August. I believe we're going to Peru, Kama.
Shikama. Yeah,
Oh, I
exactly.
have an unstable internet
Um,
connection.
you were breaking up a little bit, but it's fine now. Um, can you hear me?
You're a little frozen. You're a little, yeah, you're just had a
Yeah.
little freeze.
Okay,
I
good.
can hear you loud and clear.
So obviously you and I, we have a Patreon set up for Spit now, and we're doing bonus episodes. Today's bonus episode, I was thinking we should pull in Scott Toth, who you were talking to at breakfast, and Mitch Robinson, because they had great commentary this morning around breakfast. And I'm like, we should just have this on. We should be rolling mics right now. These guys are great. So what do you think about that? Pulling them in a little later.
Yeah, let's do that. I love that. Yeah,
Okay.
let's do that for sure. I love it.
We'll we'll get insights direct from the listeners. So I'm keen. All right,
Okay.
Scott. Well, into the bulk of the show. What do you got for me?
Yeah, so this interesting news that broke like 3 or 4 days ago, maybe a little bit more, but is this Lady Gaga has made this clothing that's called Mayhem, and it's a direct trademark violation with Matt Biolos and Mike Riola, who run Lost Clothing. They, of course, Mayhem is trademarked, and you know, I'm hoping that Lady Gaga just does the right thing and goes, you know what? Here's these guys that are working hard and trying to make a living, and I'm absolutely killing it. Making merch sales aren't going to determine, my quality of life at all. And so let's just yield to the people who legally own the trademark and let, Matt and Mike have what's legally theirs and not step on their toes. And so I don't know what your thoughts are on it, but to me, it's a pretty cut and dried case. Like, this is our trademark. You're violating our trademark. Please stop. And it's certainly my hope that Lady Gaga, because I'm a fan of Lady Gaga. I was like, I'd like to see her kind of, and I sense that she's probably not even aware of it. Maybe her lawyers know about it, but I think if she was aware of it, she'd probably be like, yeah, you know what? Let's move on.
Yeah, I'm interested to know the numbers. What is Biolos asking for? So Lady Gaga is on a tour. It's called the Mayhem Tour, name of her album. And the logo that her graphic designer, again, she's probably not aware of it. The logo that they designed is just the word Mayhem, and it has a little bit of a bend to it. It's not a standard font. It's a font that the graphic designer made, but it does look pretty similar to Mayhem's logo. So that Mayhem does have his logo trademarked. So that's where we enter this conversation. I guess legally, if you have to change a logo like that, 30%. So now you have to really define what is the 30% and did she change it 30% or not, or did her people? So my opinion is If it is, I mean, Biolos business 101 is Biolos has a trademark, you protect the trademark, full stop. It doesn't matter. Any other conversation or details really are irrelevant. You just have to do this. This is just a normal business practice. And I would presume, as you did, Lady Gaga earns enough, makes enough to where she could just make this go away by just writing a check. That's where I said I want to know what the number is. Is it 5 million bucks? She might write a $5 million check. Is he asking for 100 million bucks? That's probably unreasonable. If he is, she can ride this thing out way longer than he can, tie it up in court, and bleed him dry. And she wouldn't mind because it's only a percent of her total net worth, you know? So that's one thing. The other thing here, just kind of that is irrelevant from a legal standpoint, is there was a black metal band years before Biolos started doing his thing that used a very similar logo, or they created a logo prior to Mayhem's. Their name was Mayhem, and theirs is about as different from Matt's as Lady Gaga's is from Matt's. So people could make the assumption or whatever speculation that Mayhem was into that style of music and saw that logo, and whether intentionally or not, created one that was inspired by, you know. The other detail here is Lost has notoriously used spoof logos on things. They make t-shirts that say the King of Surfing with a Budweiser, you know, logo where just the wording is changed, but they're using the same font even. So they have kind of this long history of spoofing other logos. And he even said in his interview in Stab, he addressed that and he said, yeah, it's a joke. And we usually get a cease and desist letter and we stop doing it. So it's kind of like, well, from just I don't know, opinion standpoint, she's doing to you what you've done to a lot of other people. The only things that's different here is the dollar amounts. She's going to make a ton of money off this merch, and you do own the copyright. So maybe that metal band Mayhem did not own a copyright, and so they had no legal recourse. Mayhem does, and so despite my opinion of everything I stated, I do believe he has to protect his trademark because that's just good business. So
Yeah, a couple things. First of all, I don't think what she's doing is the same thing that they were doing. Riola and Biolos, when they were sort of, I guess if you want to call it making fun of or making light of or parroting or parroting certain known international brands, that's not the case. Lady Gaga probably had no clue who
yeah,
what Mayhem was, and so I feel like they have a great case because they have the trademark, and you would think that Lady Gaga's legal department would be like, oh, you know what? There's already a Mayhem clothing thing, and they have a trademark. And oh, by the way, this thing we created looks very similar. Let's create something that's obviously not as closely tied graphically to theirs, so that we don't run into this. And it just feels like maybe, and again, I'm assuming here, but maybe the Gaga people are like, ah, screw it. These guys, they're probably not even going to notice. Let's just go with what we've designed and move forward. So I'm, uh, I'm, like I said, I think legally they have a very strong case. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know, but my sense is that Matt does have a lawyer, and Matt's lawyers are probably like, we've dotted all our I's, we've crossed all our T's. This is wrong. And I don't know what they're asking for, but my sense is they're like, at some point, if hundreds of thousands of people or tens of thousands are leaving SoFi Stadium with Mayhem clothing and it's not ours, that's bullshit.
I don't disagree with that at all. And I think Matt made one other additional point in the interview he did with Stab, which was there is a long history of skate culture and surf culture creating these small but niche, influential, whether it's logos or just movements that then broad culture absolutely pilfers and gets rich on. And so maybe it was just Lady Gaga's graphic designer is a surfer and he's aware of the logos and he knows how cool it is. And so he just drew inspiration from it. But Matt's point was we've worked really hard to create something core. And so I'll be damned to let somebody come in and basically blow it up and make a joke out of it so that it then dilutes our brand. Our brand is going to be way less cool if Lady Gaga's rocking the logo, basically, and selling it to all of her minions. So I think
Yeah.
that's also a very fair point.
And I think from a 30,000 foot level, to me, this is like David and Goliath. Like I'm always rooting for the small guy here, the underdog, and I and I think my gut instinct is to just root for the underdog. When there's some mammoth, huge, mega brand like Lady Gaga swooping in and either knowingly or unknowingly taking advantage, I think it's wrong.
I agree. And I'm rooting for Matt in this too. I hope that she just writes the check and is done with it, pays him out,
Yeah, yeah.
and
We'll see.
changes her
It'll be
logo.
be interesting to see how it flows. The thing is that I sense that maybe I'm stepping on. Maybe I don't know what I'm talking about, which is often the case. But I sense that Lady Gaga's probably would be stoked on Matt and Mike. There's you know, maybe not. Maybe. I really would love it if Lady Gaga was like, "Oh my God, look what we did. We're so sorry. We won't do it again. Here you go. Well, cease and desist. Yes."
Yeah, I agree. We're on the same page. Okay. What was topic number 2, the Q1 report from Stab?
Oh yeah, the Q1 report. That was really fascinating. So Stab sent out basically a quarterly report on the culture of surfing, the sport of surfing, where we're at. They touched on early on in Q1 the Eddie ran. It was insane. There was a couple of other days that there was a day at Jaws, a couple days at Mavericks, mind blowing waves during that whole run. Then Nazare was sort of underwhelming as far as the big wave tour. It didn't really produce. And they touched on some other things. Maybe you have some insight into what else they touched on in that Q1 report. I thought it was really well done, though.
Well, what I appreciated about it was just these recaps because we move so fast from week to week that I kind of forget what happens in a given year. Um, and occasionally, even on our show, like I will have to go back on the website and like fix something from 2 or 3 years ago. And I see what we talked about. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I forgot about that. Like this is a nice little time capsule of that week in time. And I like having these recaps from Stab in this way. One of the topics that they highlighted was surf parks go stratospheric. So obviously, the WSL ran an event in Abu Dhabi this year. They were also talking about the one, I don't even know where it is now that I'm trying to think about it, but the one that like they're doing massive airs at now. It might be in Brazil, where there's
Yes.
this major wedge air section, and you're seeing these guys launch higher than we've ever seen before. And I think that's all pretty compelling to me. Like, where, again, just using as a training facility, because the argument that I've made about wave pools in the past was that there aren't big sections. Like, the biggest airs we're going to see are going to come from Matt Miola on Maui because there's a big, crazy section, right? And anything we say in a wave pool still almost looks like child's play. Now we're at a point where they're projecting a launch ramp at you and you can go full speed. And we're seeing people stick super technical grabs and rotations, buttery, like landing them perfectly. And so I think if you're able to go there and work that muscle out and then apply that to the ocean, we're going to see a pretty quick advancement in certain aspects of surfing.
Well, you're absolutely right. And what I would do is I would say, hey, here's my Trees Wax must see moment. Go to Italo Ferreira's Instagram account and watch the incredible air. I think it's a Superman. Or what was that? Is it a double grab or I forget? I don't know the names. We need Chris Cote. I don't know, but it's an insane air. It's super high. His feet leave the board, and then he puts the board back under his feet and lands it super smoothly. And so, yeah, as a training arena, those wave parks are incredible. And so, yeah, I would agree with you. Let's see that now. This week in El Salvador.
Well, we have, I think, to a certain degree, not in El Salvador, but we saw it in Portugal to a certain degree. We are starting to see it all play out. So specifically as a training facility, because I was talking to somebody else here on this trip about wave park or surf parks and their relevance to the surf world. And we were sitting up here in the restaurant looking down at the water, and I was just making the comment that it's surfing for me. So little of it is about standing on the surfboard and riding the wave. As it's about hanging here at the resort, checking the waves all day, realizing what the moments are, hoping that you can get it, putting in all this work so that you finally get out there. And if you get the good one, all the work makes it feel that much more gratifying. You're not guaranteed anything. And then when I'm paddling out in the dark, in the warm water, I'm thinking to myself, this is as good as it gets. Like paddling out alone. Forget about standing on the surfboard. Just paddling out in the warm, watching the sun come up. This is like a sanctuary, you know?
Yes.
And and so and then coming in with and having breakfast with everybody and recapping all of it, that's all part of the experience. And a very, very, very different version, a sanitized version of that exists in the wave pools. So it's totally cool. And I like the wave pools, but it's not surfing as we know it. It's a very different thing that exists 10 aside from or next to, but I would never pick a wave pool trip over an actual ocean trip kind of a thing, you know?
Well, there certainly are blowing up. I mean, I want to say that they're building one in Virginia Beach, I believe. It
Yes.
might be a Wave Garden one. There's a new
It,
Wave Garden. I think it's Wave Garden in Palm Springs, the DSRT wave pool. And don't quote me on the technology. I think it's Wave Garden. But what's interesting is, and maybe, our friend Brian Dickerson at Wave Pool Magazine can give us some insight here. But that Surf Lakes one from Australia with the plunger,
yeah.
that's kind of, I don't know, is it around anymore, or is it just like a long shot? Like no developer seemed to be adopting that one. And again, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Surf Lakes has got someone's building it in friggin' Copenhagen or something. I don't know. But it seems like the developers have sort of narrowed down the tech that they're going to use that makes sense, that pencils out on the spreadsheet. I just haven't seen the Surf Lakes. And again, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the Surf Lakes are being built, that technology is being used, and I don't know. But it seems to me everything's like Wave Garden or American Wave Machines or Lochtefeld's technology. But that plunger thing, that Mad Max Australian plunger thing, I don't know. It's just, maybe you have some insight. I know Brian Dickerson probably does.
It's it's kind of an arms race, right? Right? For exactly what you said. And but the reality is I don't think anybody has realized a profitable business model yet. Obviously, there's some pools that are open, like Palm Springs, which uses the wave lock technology. Uh, I they haven't been open long enough to see profitability, but I don't know if they've even seen like I don't know if they're selling out the pool or if they can maybe charge more. If they are selling out the pool, can they now charge more than they initially thought rather than 200 bucks an hour? Maybe they can get away with three, that sort of thing. Kelly Slater's is so cost prohibitive and niche that they've been able to just, and there's not a lot of other options available. So they've been able to cater that to, it's a supply and demand thing. They just have this thing that everybody wants. So they can do that, but only for a certain period of time. Once there's three pools available down the street, less people will service that one. So I don't know that the business model's really been worked out yet. It's still in that phase, but the good thing about the wave garden technology is they used to make the slowest, lamest wave, but they've now got the cove technology, which adds punchier sections and barrels and that sort of thing. So I think that was a really smart pivot for them. And that's what the Atlantic Park in Virginia Beach is using. I think they're going to fill that in July, actually. So we will probably see that in the next few months. But I mean, I've surfed the American Waves Machine one in Waco. I thought it was totally fun. The Palm Springs one to me has been the most fun because it's the most, you are able to get the most waves over the course of an hour and the most variety of waves. So it feels a little bit more like the ocean, where if you eat it on the first wave, you can just get another one real quick and shake off your failure. Whereas the Kelly one, of course, it's a super expensive wave, and if you fall, you feel like you wasted an opportunity. So
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, there was a guy in the water here this morning that I talked to, and him and his buddies, they came from Park City, Utah. They were like, okay, you know what? trip. We deserve a surf trip. You know, a boy's skin, the food and the culture and the experience of traveling here, and all the things you mentioned earlier in the show, paddling out in the dark and the warm water and the tropicalness of it all. And are the level of waves they're catching, how would they equate to if they just went to Kelly Slater's wave pool or to Waco? One of those, of course, that's apples and oranges, by the way. Let's say Kelly Slater's wave pool in Lemoore. Like, you and I've been there. We were blown away when, like, whatever it was probably 7 or 8 years ago. We were like, oh my God, this is Disneyland. This is insane. And the waves are insane. But what you're missing is all the stuff I just mentioned, all the ancillary things about surf travel. But with their, you know, you can't argue with them going, hey, let's just go to Lemoore. We're going to score each. We're going to each get 8 insanely long right-hand points and left-hand point waves. Like, or we're going to roll the dice, but we're going to get all the ancillary stuff. You know, we're going to eat traditional burritos and all that. Which is better, you know, who knows? But you can see how there's a market for tech guys from Park City that, oh, by the way, it's only going to be 2 days too. We're going to go to Lemoore. We'll be back by Monday. Like, there's, of course it is apples and oranges, but you can see how there is a market for that. There is a market for guys going for 1.5 days to Palm Springs and having an insane steak dinner at the best, you know, steak restaurant in Palm Springs, which there are a few, and smoking a cigar and playing 9 holes of golf and then surfing all day.
That's the key, is where did you build the wave park? Because Palm Springs is a great destination that I do want to spend the entire weekend in. And I'll surf 2 hours on 2 days and do all that other stuff. And it's a phenomenal trip, surf trip, actually. But Lemoore, terrible trip. You know, like, I was telling our Lemoore story last night, and I was like, first of all, you drive into the middle of pasture land where it smells like manure. Then you go to the Tachi Palace to stay. And that was a really sad experience for me. I walked in there and I looked around and I'm like, these people walking around with an oxygen machine that are all unhealthy, hoping to win an amount of money that's going to, like, help them get through the next month. And the other bizarro thing of that experience that I hadn't thought about until I was telling the story was everybody was walking around with rice cookers under their arm. I walked into the casino to check in to the hotel, and all these people had rice cookers. And I was like, what is going on in Lemoore? And then I realized they were doing some promotion where if you spend $20 at the slot machine, you then get a free rice cooker. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is bizarro world. You know, it smells like manure. I've got surfboards in my car. I'm in the middle of the state, nowhere near an ocean. What is going on? And so I wouldn't necessarily advise going and spending. If you go spend the weekend in Lemoore, it's only for those waves. So it puts a lot of pressure on those waves. But being able to go to somewhere like Virginia Beach or Palm Springs, that's a great weekend.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And you're right. It almost seems like it would be wise for somebody perhaps to roll the dice on some CapEx expense and build a really cool, buy a chunk of land across the street from Lemoore, from this wave pool, and build something that's a little bit more like speaks to the surfer more, you know, that's not so sad. As you mentioned, it's sad. You know, that casino is just a sad situation. It's almost like, I think they allow smoking in there too. Like, the smoke has got into the carpet. Yes. Like, it's just mildewy and you know, it's like the worst hotel you could find in Vegas, but it's in Lemoore.
Yeah. Well, maybe somebody has already, because we haven't been there since 2017. So it very well could be like a boutique hotel nearby.
Doesn't Kelly rent out isn't there a series of Airstreams that you can rent out? I believe that there's like VIP Airstreams in there, and I don't know how you go about getting it, but we'll probably never revisit Lemoore. I wouldn't mind checking out Abu Dhabi just for the sake of saying, yeah, I've been there, I've experienced it. Because like any place, you kind of got to go there. You can't listen to Scott and David and get what it's really all about. Do you have a desire to go to Abu Dhabi at all?
Almost zero, close to zero.
Close to zero. Well,
you've
got low expectations at least.
There's too many other places to go, you know, like, what is that trip going to cost me? And how many other great surf destinations could I go for that amount of money? Probably 100.
Do you have one specific place that for whatever reason pulls on your heartstrings that you haven't been to that you want to go to? Um, Speak to me. Where's your next favorite? Like, no matter what, if money wasn't an issue, where would you want to go?
J Bay.
Oh, that's a good one. Interesting. Very interesting.
Ever since I first discovered surfing, J Bay.
You know where I have a hankering to go is Costa Rica, that location that's way down by Pavonis, but that's on the, I guess it would be on the north side of the waterway that's between Pavonis. I think it's called Monopolo or Mapalo or something like that. Do you know where I mean?
Yeah.
I spoke with, I think it was Mike Hennessy, and he has a place there. And just that whole jungle, it's like, it's super environmental, like the oxygenation of the jungle. Like it's got a real eco-friendly resort. The waves are good, super fun, rippable waves, nothing too crazy, super good fishing, but a real kind of yoga. There's something about just, you feel like you're in a healthy jungle. There's monkeys in the trees. And so that's kind of the zone I'd love to. And plus, I know my wife would love it. It would be fun for my wife to go. It's the kind of place where there's like probably a spa experience, but it's got a real, like I said, it's got a real, floral and fauna, that whole vibe.
Totally. Yeah, I mean that's doable. That's accessible. It's not far, it's not expensive. So you should definitely do that. J Bay for me has all the adventure elements too. Like I could go for a week to surf and then do an additional week or two to go do the safari and the wine region and all that other stuff too, you know.
Would you look for jewels? Would you dig for diamonds?
No, I think diamonds are losing value by the year,
This
so
is true. This is true.
I don't care. I don't really care about diamonds
Hey,
at
you
all.
mentioned Matt Miola earlier, and I was watching this documentary that you recommended called Supermensch, and his assistant in Maui has the last name Miola, and I'm like, is that Matt Miola's mom? Is that who that is?
Yeah. Yeah, Matt Mueller's
Oh,
mom was the assistant to Shep Gordon, but I mean, she's passed away in recent years, a couple
oh,
years
I'm
ago.
sorry. Oh,
So
okay.
that documentary is probably 8 years old now, and I think she passed away about 2 or 3 years ago. But I've talked to Matt about her and about Shep, and rave about Shep. Everybody has such great things to say about Shep Gordon and he was so great to Nancy.
And what a trippy thing, because this is right in your wheelhouse, the way that he sort of adopted this chef and became like a foodie and became a chef on his own, right? And I thought of you. I'm like, this is what David's all about. Like you're about fine foods and the harvest of the fine foods and finding the resources and getting these things and putting them together and making an incredible meal and then sharing it with your friends the way that Shep shared his meals with the people.
He's all about community. And also that's how Lily Miola has benefited from that relationship too. Lily Miola, of course, is a wonderful musician who's having quite a moment. You know, the last couple of years, she's gained a lot of notoriety and popularity, and Shep has helped her with the music career. And then Willie Nelson lives nearby on island. So, and Willie's kids play music. And so Lily really tapped into those resources. And I think she's really thriving because of it.
You know, you mentioned Willie Nelson. I saw Micah Nelson play with Neil Young on Neil Young's tour recently, probably about, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 months ago down at San Diego State. And Michael Nelson's filling in there, becoming a part of the Neil Young becoming a part of Crazy Horse, which is the band that backs Neil Young. And I think they now have a new name. They've basically said, look, this is the band. It's Micah Nelson and this other guy. The Crazy Horse guys are like 85 years old. Like they can't even tour anymore. So they've got basically the same kind of grungy electric vibe, like sort of power chord, blah, 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 and let Neil do his thing. But they do have a new name. I can't recall what it's called, but I did see that recently.
I have one listener call that I want to play for you before we cut out here. It's in reference to we were talking about, or I was talking about how I've unearthed all my surf mags out of garage. And so somebody had an opinion on that.
Yes.
Hey there, this one's for the spit. Hey guys, it's Taylor from NorCal. Wanted to chime in on the vintage surf mags. I'm on the same page as both of you, 100,000%. I had everything like surfing and surfer related, like 87 to 91. That was my era. A lot of day glow, I realize. And I don't have them anymore. And there are certain issues that I've been like cruising eBay for and picking up, you know, when the price is decent, or looking at thrift shops when I'm along the coast. But I recently came into possession of like 70 surf mags, mostly surfer, some surfing, through a friend of a friend down in Southern California. And they're mostly late 70s, early 80s, so not quite my era, but it is really fascinating to look through them and look at brands that aren't there anymore and marketing styles that have changed over the years. Look at articles about, you know, places you might be familiar with, or arguments that we think are new today but have been made for decades and decades. And quite honestly, like, how people really just love tucking their polo shirts into their super short shorts back in the day. Well, how did that ever be a thing? Anyway, yeah, let's keep that ephemera alive. Let's scan them and save them any way we can. Thanks. Keep it real.
Yeah,
Thing to
polo
grab,
shorts, polo shirts into the. That's like a shot across the bow at Buzzy Kerbox, I feel like.
The funny thing is that I've noticed as I'm going through those is I read some from the 60s, and there'll be like an editor to the, or the letter to the editor kind of section. And the things that the people are writing in about are the same things that they're talking about in the mags from the 90s that I then open. And it's the same things that you and I are talking about here on the show week after week. It's
Yeah.
like there's, the industry is ruining the core culture. The pro surfers are having a bad influence on my 13-year-old kid. You put too many bikinis in the magazine or something, you know, like it's literally the same for the entirety of it.
Yeah. I guess that's sad. That's sort of a sad statement on our culture, I guess. We're still complaining about all the silliness, but he did mention something, which I think is fun, is looking back at the old marketing campaigns, looking back at how they sold surfing. Look, has been sold since, I guess, Gidget. You know, I'm going to say Gidget is when they really, you know, that's been sort of on the historical timeline of surfing. That's been the moment, that sort of keystone moment on that timeline when it's like, okay, we flipped from being a tribe and a super subculture to being commercially viable. There's a market here. We've got these young 15-year-olds that want to buy surfboards and everything that has to do with surfing. And Gidget is sort of like the key that unlocked all of that. So we've been selling surf since then. And you know, what are we selling? We're selling the lifestyle. We're selling the Stoke. We're selling all the stuff that you and I kind of talked about at the beginning of this podcast. Look at this beautiful place here in El Salvador. Like, you should come down here.
I totally agree. Yeah, I've really enjoyed looking at the ads too. And all the brands that are now defunct that I just totally forgot about, you know, like, but the ads were influential to me as a young guy. I was like, I would buy that product because of that person. So
Yeah.
it is
Yeah.
very interesting. But I also
Of note
think,
regarding magazines, this California Gold Surf Auction has years 1 through 25 of the Surfer's Journal on the auction block, no reserve, a very low opening bid. I think it's $200. And some of those first couple issues of the Surfer's Journal are worth a lot of money. They're simply not in print, and the Surfer's Journal in San Clemente does not have them. So we've got years 1 through 25 in excellent condition at the California Gold Surf Auction, which, by the way, April 5th is when bidding begins. April 19th is when we close the bidding. So exciting times here the next couple weeks as the auction gets underway.
that's a great lot. That ties in perfectly with what we've been talking about. The other thing that I think is valuable with those magazines is uh, history repeats itself, as I already stated. And you can really kind of peek into the past to get a glimpse of the future. And I think that that's valuable.
Okay, well, let's do that. What can you tell me is going to happen in the next couple of years based on, say, I don't know, the 90s, the whole decade of the 90s? You know, think about how would you describe the decade of the 90s in surf? I always think of, especially hit what our caller mentioned, 87 to 91. I think of uh, Duma. I think of Damian Hardman. Like, I think of, we had something like 20 stops on tour back then or more. There was like a stop a week, and the waves were in horrible conditions. And maybe I've answered my own question.
So I think there was a boom time for the industry. So everything grew really rapidly. And then, of course, there was a recession time. But what happened during the growth time was there was a homogeneity that took place. Things started to homogenize. And so I could see that starting to happen too. Right now, things are really ripe and fertile, and you're able to pick your own career path. We use the Nathan Florence as the example all the time of somebody who just kind of created influence, and then sponsors came to him, non-endemic sponsors even, and now he's making a good living. Jamie O'Brien, even better living probably. But those things gain so much influence and traction that then there becomes just tons of minions who just do what that person does. And so, the entire surf world riding pointy thrusters were a reflection of Kelly Slater's ultimate influence, and really regressive for the surf culture, to be honest. Like, it put everybody back a decade, in surfboard design and all that sort of thing. So I could see that happening again, to where right now, lots of fertile growth, but everybody's going to be riding mid lengths and doing vlogs in the next 5 and 10 years. Maybe mid lengths are already passe, actually. But the point is, we're all going to have the same kind of points of influence. And so there will be a homogeneity. And then it just becomes vanilla at that point. And there's a lot less interest and a lot less of the, I don't know, the core appeal or the, I don't know what. And that's where you then see the downfall. Everything kind of falls off a cliff and needs to reset.
Well, you mentioned vlogs. Everybody seems to have a YouTube channel these days, and some of them are really good. By the way, another one of my must-see moments presented by Trees Wax. I watched Koa Smith. I randomly was on my YouTube on my big screen at home, and I watched Koa Smith at Cloudbreak. Could have been older, but it was awesome. It was incredible. It was like the best thing I've seen in months. Koa Smith surfing perfect Cloudbreak. Now, but what I'm getting at is, there's also probably a lot of really crappy YouTube channels, surf channels, or there's great ideas like Aki's got a YouTube channel, but it's just not going to last. Like, I think we're going to see a filtering, and we're going to see the cream rise to the top, as we kind of already have. Mason Ho, Jamie O'Brien, Nathan Florence, those ones just speak to us. Koa Smith, I just mentioned. There's probably some other great ones, but in 5 years, are there going to be vlogs, David? Is technology going to outpace this?
I can't say. I think those people will transition to whatever the new medium is. So I can't say what that looks like, but I think that good surfing is the cream that rises to the top. So when you watch that Koa Rothman thing, it's because that wave's incredibly difficult and he's dominating it. And the fact that he's able to deliver that to you within 48 hours of when that wave was surfed is just, we didn't have that access before, So that's
I have an idea.
Hmm.
I just thought of this. Maybe it's not that brilliant, but could this be in 5 years? Every resort simply employs a crew of guys like you and ever to go out and live stream every single epic, not even epic, just every single swell. So, for instance, Tabarua has a on-site live stream production crew. It's maybe 2 guys. Let's call it 3 guys. And their job isn't to surf, isn't to service the customers, isn't to do anything but live stream of, I don't know what you would call it. Let's call it a vlog for now. And that takes place here at Punta Mango. That takes place at Puerto Escondido. And in some regards, Surfline is kind of doing this, but maybe that's the next thing. Every single spot, Abu Dhabi's wave pool, Rincon, you name it. Hike J Bay, you mentioned. We're going to just see resorts realizing this is the greatest marketing I can do is just have a vlog team here, and we're just, however it's formatted, more will be revealed. What do you think about that? Is that too crazy of an idea, or not crazy enough? Like everyone's going, yeah, no kidding. Well, that's already happening.
I don't know. It depends if, I mean, Tavarua doesn't need any more attention on it. They're able to fill the
That's
guest
not the
rooms.
point. If it was
But
8 foot right now and live streaming, we'd probably be watching it.
yeah, I don't know. Like, again, it's expensive to have two video production people on staff 24/7 or, full throughout the year to do that when it only happens periodically. So I don't know that the economics pan
I don't
out or that
know.
they
I don't
can
know about
generate enough
cost.
revenue off of the streams to pay for the costs.
It's not a
So,
revenue. It's a marketing. It's a marketing expense.
well,
It's not
that's
a
my
revenue.
point
It's
is
not. You're not trying to make profit.
that was my first point is Tavarua doesn't need more marketing. But there are certain places that do that it would have value for. Punta Mango right here, they could definitely do something like that. But again, do you want to have that expense that you're operating at all times? And I think about that actually with real water sports. When I realize how much video production they're putting out, I realize, oh my goodness, they have people on staff full time who are just doing this. And that allows them to definitely get ahead in the retail market space because they are generating valuable content that we as surfers want to watch. So it's worth it in their case.
Interesting. So you think that Tavarua has plenty of marketing? They don't need any more marketing. Um,
Well, they have a finite resource that the demand is far greater for than the supply.
right. Hmm.
But like Punta Mango here in El Salvador, there are a number of other there's a lot of right point breaks up and down this coast, and there's a lot of other resorts. And so that's where you kind of need a point of differentiation in the market, and they would be wise. I mean, the reality is here, there's local kids not employed by anybody. They're freelance. They show up at 5:30 every morning at the point. They film all of our clips. Then they show up back here at breakfast time and they let us watch our clips and we could buy them for 20 bucks. Not 20 bucks a clip. We could buy the entire session for 20 bucks. So it's a good deal for us because we don't have to pay a filmer to come. And if we kook it, we don't have to pay for the clips. So if you get good waves and you want the clips, you buy them. So Punta Mango could work some sort of a deal with them, you know,
Well,
that would be
what
kind of
I'm
a perfect
suggesting
fix.
to you isn't today, but it's 5 years from now. In other words, the technology and the cost gets to a place where it's not a cost. It's not that big a deal cost wise. So
Yeah.
it's I don't know. I'm just I'm just trying to think out into the future here. That's all. Future tripping.
Yeah, and the best waves in the world have enough pros coming. Like Kandui generates enough clips out of Kandui without having to do what you're talking about. The pros show up and do it for them, you know. So there's those two things to consider too. But I think your thing is still salient in certain examples.
Yeah. All right. Well,
So
look at me. I came up with one. I grabbed one out of thin air.
um I wanted to acknowledge a must-see moment presented by Trees Wax. I have the good fortune. By the way, Trees Wax is petroleum-free surf wax made from rocks and trees, believe it or not. And it's high performance and tacky and or works great. So go to treeswax.com. But I have the good fortune of being on the board and a juror for the Florida Surf Film Festival. And so I get to see a lot of surf films every year. And I saw this film over a year ago, I think. And it's called Hail Mary. And it features Balaram Stack. It's like a biopic on Balaram Stack. And those things are great. Great film. Balaram's great. Go watch it. It's now available on YouTube. Stab Magazine had a little exclusive on it for a few days, but you can watch it there or on YouTube. But really, the value here is the filmmaker himself, Ben Gulliver. Watch this film just to revel in the artistry of Ben Gulliver. And he made it a film 7 years ago called The Sea Wolf. And then he made a film about Carissa Moore, or no, he didn't do the Carissa Moore one, but he's done a couple of other projects over time. The Sea Wolf was amazing. It was in the North Atlantic, and that was the first thing that kind of clued me into him. But with the Balaram Stack film, he's a musician. So he scores the entire film himself. He does all of the artwork associated with the film. He films the trip. Like he's not hiring camera crews. He's going and he's filming with Balaram. He's directing. He's in an auteur. and he's the best at it in our space, I would argue. So Ben Gulliver, I'm a
It
huge
sounds like
fan.
is he making any money? This guy, he sounds like he's broke. I
No,
hope
he
he's
does.
making
He
money. It sounds
works,
like he sounds like he deserves to make some money.
as with a lot of people in the surf world, he makes a living outside of the surf world, and he does these surf projects as passion projects. But
Okay.
my concern when I get to watch all these great films through the festival is all our listeners aren't going to be able to watch them, because a lot of them go out and shop them around to streaming services,
Yeah.
and then they languish in purgatory for
Yeah.
years. And
Yeah. They lose their marketing mojo.
this
You
is
know,
one
their
of them that,
energy, their marketing energy gets just kind of faded away.
or they're not willing to give it away for free on YouTube at that point. So it's like it never gets the eyeballs it deserves, because there are a lot of great films. And this is one that, like I said, it was probably over a year ago. I was like, this is phenomenal. And I think it even won awards at the film fest. And I want to share it with everybody who's listening, but
Yeah.
there's not a platform. So I'm thrilled to see this finally see the light of day. And I encourage you all to go watch it, but mainly just to see more of Ben Gulliver's work, because it's incredible. And go back
How
and
many
watch The
films do
Seawolf.
you how many films do you watch for this film festival?
They send me, I think, 12 or so, 2 times a year.
And you know me, like I'm a little hypercritical, probably too much so. But I just want to know, do you watch films and you go, "Come on, this," or do they already filter them so that you're only getting really good content?
They get hundreds of submissions, and they do filter them down drastically. But
Right.
there's a wide range of films, like, two dudes in Argentina with no budget and no filmmaking experience who go on a sojourn and document it. All from that all the way to Momentum Generation that then ended up on HBO. So I get to see but it's not that the Momentum Generation is always better. Like, some of the small ones end up winning. Um, and some of them I don't finish. To your point, is like I start it and I get 20 minutes in and I'm like, it's not very good. And so it gets low
Yeah.
marks from me as a juror.
Yeah.
But I do see way more great films than ever get to see the light of day, unfortunately.
Is it the case that a great film is a film that isn't really about surfing? I was talking to one of our guests here about the surf memoir genre in writing, and we kind of agreed, like the best ones are ones that, yeah, there's on the periphery, yeah, okay, it's a surf memoir, but it's really there's conflict that you didn't see coming. Do you see that in surf films? Are you looking for that? Are you hoping that, oh, good, there's something fresh here besides either look at me rip or me and my bros had a spiritual moment on a journey, to wherever.
Yeah, I do appreciate the human interest element of it. Specific to the film fest, they categorize them separately. There's documentary and then there's surf porn, essentially. They don't call it surf porn, but um, so Calypti, the Torrin Martin sailing adventure, won last
Yeah.
year, like across all categories, like best surf documentary, best music, best cinematography, that sort of thing. But then Trilogy, the new like high shredding Billabong film with Griffin Colapinto and Seth Moniz and Ethan Ewing, won surf porn category, I think. So those things that didn't have any human interest in it, but we do bisect those categories. But I don't have as much interest watching Trilogy as I do watching the Calypti, let's say.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
All right. Well,
but must see moment presented by Treeswax, Hail Mary by Ben Gulliver. Go get it. And Scott, we got to get back to our surf obligations here.
yeah.
Let's
You
at
know
least
what?
acknowledge our sponsors real quick. We already said it, but Real Water Sports, of course, NVS Fins, we love so much. Um, Also, Surfrider Foundation, I didn't mention, but Surfrider, Ocean needs more friends. Become a member of Surfrider, surfrider.org. I got the shirt on right here. Big
And you
fans
know
of
what
their
else we
work.
should acknowledge is
Hmm.
you just did a great interview with Jason Bort. Before that, you had Nathan Oldfield. Did you have somebody in between there too? So go listen to
Stretch.
Stretch. That's right. So you had Stretch, Jason Bort, and Nathan Olford. Now that's 3 totally different characters that are interesting that you should go listen to that. And I just did an interview. I don't know if you've posted it yet, but it'll come out shortly, I think, on Surf Splendor with Mitchell Ray at Outer Island Surfboards. And hopefully we'll get that out there shortly. You can also watch that right now on YouTube if you just do a Google search.
Yeah,
for
Mitchell Ray. Mitchell Ray was posted. Oh, you're right. We didn't post that one yet. I'll post that today. Sorry.
No worries. So there's some ear candy for you. Check that out. And David, until next time, adios and aloha.